Hello, Lynn Watts here. And in this video, I'm going to be following up to a previous video that I did talking about how to work with a student who is having an angry outburst. So in that video, I talked about what to do in the immediate situation. How do you calm that student down? What is the strategy that you need to learn? So if that's what you're interested in, go back and check out that video. In this video, though, I want to talk about following up with that student, because I think many times we finally get the student calmed down and we think, man, that was a lot of work, and hopefully that isn't going to happen again. But we don't really do a very concentrated kind of follow-up. I mean, maybe we check back with them the next day and say, how are things? But in terms of actually working with that student to help them prepare, plan ahead, take a look at what instigated that whole situation and that outburst, and what they're going to do the next time they have that kind of situation, because it will happen again. And so we want to help students learn some strategies, not just in the moment, which quite honestly is probably the most difficult time to teach a strategy, but at a time when they're not in the midst of that kind of conflict, and how they can prepare for that next time. So I want to tell you a couple of lessons that I have developed and that you can use to work with students. So the first two really are in my small group guide. And certainly you could do this in a small group, working with a group of students. You don't have to just pull in all students who have some anger issues. You can have quite a variety of students, but you can use this lesson to work specifically with a student who has some anger issues, and also to teach everybody, because let's face it, who feels comfortable being angry? Very few people. Very few of us have had any training or exposure in terms of how to regulate that sort of feeling and what is a positive, appropriate way to deal with it. So in the small group guide, I have one lesson that is on talking about feelings. It's called Growing in Real Feelings. So taking a look at all kinds of feelings, recognizing that all feelings are okay, but it's what we do with those feelings and how we handle them that we need to take a specific look at. Like all of the lessons in this book, there is a getting to know you kind of game in the beginning that's related to feelings. There's some essential questions. There's a discussion guide, what you want to talk about. And then there's an activity and a journal page. This particular lesson talks about positive feelings and negative feelings. So I think it's important to say, we need to know how to regulate all these feelings, not just being angry. So it's a good chance that if you're working with a student who's angry, they could use some help in working with all of their feelings. The second lesson in here that I think is appropriate for talking about feelings is one that is about growing in self-compassion, and it is particularly about self-talk. So it has to do with taking a look at, what are the messages that we give ourselves, and then, recognizing which ones serve us well and help us well in everyday life and dealing with feelings, and then which ones do we need to perhaps come up with a little different way to approach it. So there's how to create positive self-talk. Like all the lessons, there's a game to play, and then there's some activities, and then there's a journal activity question that you can answer that goes along with the lesson. So that's in the small group guide. There's also a lesson on emotional regulation that is in my new book on lesson plans. And this, of course, would be designed for an entire class, but you can always pull things out that you would use with an individual student. Each one of the lessons in both the books are aligned with ASCA standards, objectives. And this one, of course, has essential questions. It has a closing activity that you can do with the entire class that has to do with talking about emotions and how to handle them appropriately. There are books that are recommended, picture books that you can use. And then there is a section on an activity that you can do with grades K through 2 or with 3 through 5. And the younger ones have to do with using some emotional faces, identifying them, talking about body language, And then the older ones have to do with more role play and reflection on how they're handling those feelings. So, again, that lesson on emotional regulation is in my volume 2 of lesson plan. So, I wanted to give you some ways that you could follow up with students. And because I think that is really where the change is going to happen. It's important to know what to do in that difficult, challenging situation when a student is having an emotional or angry outburst. It's also important to follow up and help them develop some strategies for the future. So, as always, thanks so much for listening, and thanks for all the great work that you do with young students.